Now that you've started learning Unity's animation system, you may run into a couple of pitfalls. We're going to explore two things in this short video. The first one is around animating transform position and rotation and scale. And it has to do with the fact that when you animate these values, these are always relative to whatever parent transform. So in this case, I'm in a 2D scene, I have my cat bread and my toaster, and if I hit play, you'll see that my cat bread fires out of the toaster. Now, when I say that these positions are relative to the parent, this has no parent, which means that these are relative to the scene, which is another way of saying these are global position, rotation, and scale. So, say I grab my cat bread and toaster and I move them over, and then I hit play, we'll see that I'm still animating from the same position over to the right. So I have basically baked my animation to this particular place in the world, not relative to anything else. So how do I fix this? It's not that hard. The easiest way to do so is to take our cat bread and our toaster and to put them under another root object. So I'm going to go ahead and create an empty object. I'm going to call it root. And then I'm going to grab my cat bread. I don't need to grab my toaster, but I certainly can. And then my animations are going to play relative to this root. Now I'm going to undo this real quick. When we create our root, we want to make sure that we create it at 0, 0, 0, because that is the center of the world, so things will have no offset. Your animation will play exactly as it did before. Then drag your cat bread under. Then if I move the root and the toaster over to a different position, and I hit play, then you'll see that the animation plays correctly from its starting position rather than reverting. So just remember that when you record animations, it's a good idea to put your animations under some root object. And if you're animating things like characters, if you watch tutorials, you'll see that most character controllers have a root object and then they have the visuals for the character under that root so that they can be animated separately. So this is an industry best practice. The second thing that we're going to cover is animating physics. So I've set up a scene where I have a very simple platform that is animated. I've added a rigid body, and then I have a couple of cubes, and they also have rigid bodies apply. This one is going to fall from the sky. This one is not affected by gravity. This platform is set to kinematic, so I know that I am going to be driving its physics. It's not going to be driven by physics. And I've made sure that on my falling cube, I have a physics material, so I have friction. I'm making sure that friction is applied. If I hit play, you'll see a couple things happen that aren't expected. First of all, this cube, there's no friction at all between this and the platform. Second of all, if I'm animating just straight over to the right, this cube should go to the right. It should preserve that momentum, but instead it just sort of floats slowly up into space. I'm going to go ahead and play that again. And we'll see that this cube does not behave as we would expect. Now, both of these are caused by the same issue. They're caused by the fact that animations are non-physical movement. And so what I mean by that is animations are directly setting the transform values, and when you set the transform values, that's not physical. Essentially, what the physics system thinks is that the object, say, was at 2 in the x, it then popped out of existence and it popped back a little bit to the right, and then it popped out of existence and it popped back a little to the right. So there was no momentum. This object has no velocity as far as the physics system is concerned, which means that it can't impart momentum to other objects, which is why it can't drag this cube along with friction, and why it doesn't properly apply momentum to the right to this cube. So if you want to animate with physics, you need to go to the animator controller and you need to look at the update mode. Instead of updating on our normal mode during the regular Unity update, we need to do the fixed update. We need to animate physics instead. Once you click that and you hit play, then you'll see that sure enough, our object has momentum applied to the right and that our cube moves with our platform. And those are just two quick pitfalls that you may run into when you start working with animations in Unity.